government give you the tools you required to succeed? Did you have the leeway to succeed in this project from an IT standpoint? Thank you for the question. I think that would be a better question for the CBSA itself. There you have it. Your time is up.
It's MP Lidout. You have the floor for up to 6 minutes, please. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. First, I am shocked at what was discovered at the ArriveCan report. I can't believe nearly $60 million in contracts were awarded to companies and CEOs who did so little work to earn it. I am shocked at the lack of accountability measures. I am shocked that this company claimed to be an indigenous business. The $60 million that went to profits could have made a world of difference in my riding. It could have gone towards a harvester support grant and funding for community food programs that help to alleviate food insecurity, a condition imposed by decades of the lack of investments by successive liberal and conservative governments. This liberal government is looking to sunset this important program that supports hunters to provide for families and communities. Groceries and supplies are too costly and most families cannot afford them. How, I ask, is it always acceptable with this government to find nearly $60 million to justify a handful, just to a handful of CEOs and well-connected insiders? My first question will be to the Deputy Minister. I myself cannot go to my constituents to even try to justify to them that ArriveCan app was worth it. I am asking you to speak to the families in my riding that cannot afford basic groceries because the programs designed to lower their costs are not working. I'm asking you, through the chair, to explain to them why this government let some CEOs walk away with millions.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. The issue that has been uncovered in the last week on Dalian and their use of contracting, their employment is egregious. It's wrong, and it is a terrible situation. I myself have picked up the phone to speak to the RCMP commissioner. They've been suspended. So action is being taken. So I empathize that the situation is not acceptable. It has come to our attention, and we have moved as swiftly as possible to do something about it.
Mr. Chair, in yesterday's testimony, this committee was told that the Liberals and Conservatives together awarded a total value of contracts to GCS Strategies, to Dilian, Coradix, and Coradel Systems of around $107 million. Are you of the opinion that Canadians got full value for their money out of those contracts?
Thank you for the question. Those contracts span many years and many different departments who have had work done by those firms. Those firms have provided a variety of services, mostly in the professional services IT staff augmentation, which is in-house support to in-house priorities and deliverables. And they have indicated that they have received value, and where there is questionable value, as we've seen by the AG's report, actions are being taken to examine further measures.
I will now turn about the decision-making process around the suspensions of GCS Strategies, Dilian, and Coradix that was announced yesterday. Through the chair, can you tell this committee when the decision was made to review the security credentials of these companies and what the motivations for that review were?
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn to Madame Poulin.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So I will go one by one. If we're talking about Dalian, a decision has been made to revoke the security clearance of the organization. This is mainly based on the fact that Dalian has two key senior officials representing the company vis-à-vis the contract security program. When we are informed that there are allegations against or the company or a key senior officials, we need to verify and support the evidence to see if it's against the control or what is required from the individual or the company to be in good standing with the contract security program. As we were informed that a key senior official was also a full-time employee in one of the departments, this is against the exigence or the control of the program. So we were able to support that allegation very fast, and we were in a position to suspend the security clearance of the key senior official as well as the security clearance of the organization. If I'm going to GC strategy, it's the same process that we are using in order to assess the compliance of the organization vis-à-vis the contract security program. We received allegations. However, allegations are not enough to support a decision to suspend. We need to support this by evidence. And as soon as we got enough evidence to support the decision, we decided to suspend the security clearance of the key senior official as well as the company. Thank you.
Thank you, and that is the time that finishes our first round. Beginning now, second round with Mr. Barrett. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Has PSPC been outright banned from, has PSPC outright banned GC strategies from receiving any and all government contracts?
So we have two tools that we use. Thank you very much for the question. One is a procurement stop work order for 180 days. So that's in place across the system. And we have a second tool, which is a heavy hammer in terms of security. So if you don't hold a security, you can't do business. So both tools are in place. So right now we're working across the system to terminate contracts and no new work.
So is that a pause or is that a prohibition? Let's just use plain language so that people understand.
No, I'm just putting it in place in my head. The suspension, and I'll learn here, is a prohibition until further notice. If there's more information that's forthcoming, if there are CP invocation, well, I mean, it can't be for all intents and purposes, it can't be into perpetuity without some type of recourse. So we consider them suspensions, and there would have to be a very high response to get it back. It seems very doubtful at this stage, but I'm going to turn again to Dominique.
I'm just happy to add very quickly on that. So they're currently suspended for 180 days. At the same time, we are seriously looking at termination. So basically, we want to make sure that those decisions are not made lightly. So we want to make sure that I do receive evidence eventually from my colleagues, that we're going to be taking that into account. And if the grounds are sufficient for termination, if it's basically it validates the grounds that we had for the suspension, we'll proceed with the termination.
Let me run something by you, very specifically in the case of GC Strategies. We had the principal for GC Strategies, Mr. Firth, at a parliamentary committee. The testimony, I'm certain that you're privy to, you've seen it, where he admitted to falsifying information that he used to win a bid. He lied, and he admitted that at committee. And so whether or not the RCMP can use that in a criminal investigation, separate question, but can PSPC use it? He admitted to fraudulent activity in order to win bids for the government from the government of Canada. Is that not enough? And he also has been caught multiple times objectively lying to a parliamentary committee. But is fraud and forgery not sufficient grounds to ban, to blacklist, to have a prohibition in perpetuity for a contractor when we're talking about tax dollars?
If I may, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. What is said and also in front of committee, we have to be careful with that. So it does not necessarily, can we transpose that and use that? Again, I would say we start with the suspension. The desired effect is accomplished. Basically, the company can no longer secure any government contracts, can no longer do business. And we take the time because we want to make it right. If we're going to be terminating, we want to make sure that the supplier is not able to come back and allege grounds that for whatever reason, this person was not properly terminated. So.
Mr. Laporte?
They're not being paid, to my knowledge, they're not being paid by PSPC for any contract that is being done.
Do they have any contracts with the Government of Canada, any ongoing contracts with Social Sciences and Humanity Research Council of Canada, for example?
There was a call-out that was done by TBS, and it did not indicate that there was any outstanding contract with them or payment that were being made.
So you're confirming today that GC Strategies has no ongoing business with the Government of Canada?
This is my understanding, and I would be pleased to validate that with the committee.
So you'll validate that. You'll report back to the committee, but we'll take your answer at face value.
Thank you, just Mr. Barrett. So the committee looks forward for that validation. I appreciate your answer today. It was a request, and you acknowledged you could validate that. We look forward to that. Thank you. Mr. Barrett, you have a minute, 5 seconds.
How many instances or contracts did GC Strategies use false information in order to win the bids?
Thank you very much for the question. We actually, I think, at a request of OGO, looked at 2 areas of all active contracts with the 3 suppliers in terms of their security and their CVs. And in fact, Catherine's shop led the investigation.
Merci beaucoup. Tel que l'a mentionné.
Thank you very much. As the Deputy Minister mentioned, we conducted due diligence as soon as this matter was brought to our attention, and we worked with departments and agencies that are active contracts with them to assess 2 things in particular. Did those individuals have the proper security clearance to work on these contracts? And were they who they claimed to be? We also worked with companies, suppliers to provide CVs, and those CVs were shared with departments and agencies in order to ensure that they were properly categorized and that they had the requisite levels.
Ma'am, I appreciate the process. I'm looking for a number of occurrences.
During that verification process that started in the recent months.
Next is Ms. Bradford. You have the floor for
Chair,
5 minutes,
point
please.
of order.
Just 1 second, Ms. Bradford.
Yes. The response from the witness was not captured in interpretation.
Oh.
So if we could have it, the completeness of her answer was not captured. So if she could restate and we could have it translated, I'd look forward to that response.
That is. Would you mind just repeating that en français ou en anglais, c'est votre choix. Puis we'll just make sure that the translation is working.
Aucun problème.
No problems whatsoever, Mr. Chairperson. So I conclude my response by saying that the verification of security clearances and CVs of the resources provided by the suppliers demonstrated no exceptions that would warrant intervening in the contracting process. The interpreter would point out that the microphone was switched off.
Ms. Bradford, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for appearing today. So I want to look at the area of delegated authority. So for the Deputy Minister, can you describe for the committee, please, more about delegated authorities and how those work and what goes to a minister and what doesn't?
Thank you very much for the question. There's a couple of different lenses to this. There is the delegated authority from the Financial Administration Act, and often when you have to run a department, the minister has to be able to delegate authorities to the deputy minister and to the executives and employees below. So different levels of the organization receive the training to be able to exercise their delegated responsibility when it comes to financial controls. Can you sign for a budget? Can you provide assurances that you've received the goods and services that were received? On the contracting front, it's a very similar kind of delegation instrument of contracting authorities. It is something that is refreshed frequently, and usually the delegation of authority in terms of what the minister or the deputy or the assistant deputy minister signs off on authority to enter into contracts is dependent on risk, material level, various elements. In non-COVID times, the minister has delegated, the Minister of Public Services and Procurement has delegated their authority to the position of Assistant Deputy Minister, and in some cases below. And during the pandemic, there was a